Jay here, Stretford, Paddock. That's Joe Swift? No.
Come on.
That was a good start, wasn't it?
Swift.
Sorry.
Who's Joe Swift?
I don't know. Me other friend. You don't know
He
him.
ain't got any other friends.
He goes to a different school. That's Joe Smith. Manchester United 0. Arsenal 1. The rain is pouring down. I've had enough. I've lost the plot. I mean, it says on the thumbnail, worst ever season. Now, a lot of the time, when you see titles like that and thumbnails like that, Joe, it's hyperbole. It's nonsense.
Yeah.
It's exaggerated. But this kind of is.
Well, it's not kind of it. In terms of the Premier League, obviously United were relegated in 1974.
Yeah.
In Premier League terms, this is the worst we've ever been.
Yep.
The worst we've ever finished until now is 6th, isn't it? Or 7th?
7th, the David Moyes era.
We're currently 8th with a decent gap up to 7th. United, I think, will finish 8th. We've got Newcastle and Brighton, and I don't think we'll beat either of those teams. And if we do, I'll be stunned if we beat both of them.
Yep.
Chelsea are on a very good run of form. Newcastle, obviously one of the other teams in there who we are playing. This is as bad as it's ever been in terms of the league form. The FA Cup is giving us this weird limbo that the season could not be a success, but have a very successful element to it.
Yeah.
If we beat Manchester City. But in terms of Premier League form, this is the worst it's ever been. This is the worst we've been in my lifetime. I don't even think the performances have been the worst. Some of them have. I think under Rangnick we completely gave up, and I don't quite see that other than the Palace game. But in terms of where we are in the league, there's no question. Mathematically, this is as bad as we've ever been. It's astonishing.
It is astonishing. 14 defeats is a new Premier League record.
Yeah.
9 home defeats is a new record as well. I mean, there's records getting broken all over the gaff. 8th is our lowest ever finish. I mean, Eric Ten Hag's record-breaking Reds. Get involved in the chat and the comments. Akash K says, we have ruined the definition of wing play. Shite. Of loads of other people in the chat. Wazoo07 says, yeah, a defeat to Arsenal is disappointing, but it doesn't come as much of a surprise considering both clubs' current motivations, United's horror show at Palace, and their massive injury crisis. Heaven Soul says Chelsea aren't dropping both games. Yeah, I think we're done. I think we're going to finish 8th.
Do you even get Europa Conference for 8th? 5th and 6th get Europa League. Do 7th and 8th get conference, or is it just 7th?
I don't know. Can someone have a look at that? Someone asked me here. Sorry, I've just missed it. Someone saying, Jay, are you secretly... Oh, yeah, I've been on Verma. Jay, are you disappointed or are you secretly celebrating? I'm not, because I don't think this makes any difference. I think City are going to win the league anyway. I think City will win the rest of their games this season.
Me too.
You could probably... Well, you know probably about it. You can in the cup competition as well. So I don't feel like, oh, well, at least... You know, the sort of light at the end of the tunnel is we've stopped City winning the league. We haven't. We've just lost again at home, and City will win the league. And it felt a little bit toothless today for Manchester United. We have two shots on target, both pretty weak and tame. Arsenal looks a little bit nervy. You could see it with the fans in the crowd who they were sort of had their head in their hands and looking for the fingers and all that other nonsense. So you could see, obviously, they knew that if they concede a late equaliser, their title challenge is over. So we could have used that to our advantage. The only thing I will say is we obviously had a massively changed squad, a massively changed team. Look at our bench. There was nothing there. They were bringing on the likes of Jorginho, Martinelli, Jesus, I think, came on. And we're looking at, no disrespect to them, but the likes of Wheatley, Anthony, who's hardly set the world alight, and Christian Eriksen, who's...
Kambwala as well.
And Kambwala, it's completely different, isn't it? Mayor Amateur says, the roof leaking is the definition of what we have become. Old regime decisions still being the largest pain points. Anthony Caird says, McTominay won most of the balls. Rub says, Casemiro dropped a steamy one. Chad won execution, says Amrabat actually played well. Adam B says, 1 game a week next season, 21 is coming. Work for Leicester. What have you got there for us? Have you got some explanation?
No, I am. I've got a few sentences that really amount to absolutely nosh all. This is from the Premier League website talking about who gets which spots. It says, whichever team finishes 5th in the Premier League, currently Spurs, are guaranteed a place in the Europa League stages. As it stands, the team in 6th place at the end of the season will earn a spot in the Europa League Conference. Newcastle and Chelsea, currently 6th and 7th. This spot This is the spot that's transferred over from the EFL Cup winners, who were Liverpool, who are guaranteed a place in the Champions League, to the club highest place in the league that isn't qualifying for a UEFA club competition, which is currently 6th. So, as it stands, United wouldn't be in any competitions.
Well,
obviously, if we win the FA Cup...
When we win the FA Cup,
that'll put us immediately into the Europa League.
Yes.
So we can sort of bypass the Europa Conference, which we wouldn't get anyway, and head straight into the Europa League if we win that game. Just on this game, I honestly thought, like, we weren't particularly bad today. But that's kind of, like you said, and like people have said in the comments, the problem with where we're at the moment is the team that we're putting out, the team that we're facing. I thought for large parts of the game, you know, it was somewhat even. I don't think Arsenal dominated United, and I know they had a few more chances than us, and the goal in particular was a tap in from 4 yards out by the end of it. But I don't think they absolutely battered us by any means, whether that be in scoreline for sure, or even just in chances and possession and creation today. I just think at crucial times, United didn't really have much quality. I thought, unfortunately for him, Garnacho is beginning to look tired. He's played too many games and it's affecting his final delivery and his decision-making a little bit at this point. I think he's becoming slightly frustrated as well. Højlund, once again, completely anonymous. Whether you want to blame him partially, the service partially, or both, he just doesn't really get involved in games for Manchester United, which really needs to be addressed because we've put Harry Kane up front. If you don't pass him the ball, he's not going to score goals. I thought Ahmad looked confident and bright in the first half, dropped off a lot in the second half. You know, like we said before, Ronaldo said the same thing at the end of the watch-along. I thought Dalla was pretty good, Ahmad was pretty good. That was kind of it, really. You know, I didn't think anyone was terrible. Casemiro played them onside for their first goal, and you can say he didn't have a great game again, but it was much better than the game he had against Palace. You know, Onana didn't put a foot wrong, he played well. But we're just a bit of a soft touch, aren't we? Because we've come out at the end of this game, obviously we hate the result, but we're not surprised by it. We don't think we had a particularly bad performance, and yet in real terms, we never really looked like winning. Like, I'm disappointed, but I'm nowhere near as mad and upset as I was against Palace, and yet we've still lost a home game this season. We're coming sort of unfazed by it, which is as worrying as anything. This is what United are this season, isn't it? Just a team that we're used to used to watching them lose, and that's just no good whatsoever. That cannot carry on. Whoever the manager is next season, Ten Hag's biggest hurdle, if he starts the season next year, is making United hate losing again and making the fans not be used to losing again, especially at home. He did it last season. He can do it again. We can't have this thing where every other week we lose at home. It's just ridiculous.
No, it is. And today, if you look at it just at today, you've got players that have been playing far too much football, players that have fallen off a bit of a cliff, players playing out of position. Garnacho has played far too much football this season. Rasmus Højlund's been running himself into the ground in his first season in the Premier League. Casemiro, who's been well out of sorts and looks like he's in a bit of a decline, playing out of position after he just dropped an absolute 2 out of 10 at Selhurst Park as well. Johnny Evans isn't fit. He's starting at 36 years old in the heart of the United's defence against one of the best teams in Europe. Yeah. Let's have it right. So that's not highly ideal for him. Kobbie Mainoo could do the rest. Let's have it right. He could. He's a kid. He's gone from never playing Premier League football to playing every week in the space of 4 months. It's ridiculous. He needs a breather. So you throw all that in together. Amad Diallo, he looked knackered after an hour. Because again, how many minutes has he played in the Premier League in his life?
Yeah, probably about 250.
If that, yeah. It's like, it's not a great combo. So I do feel for these players, and I think if you're just looking at today, there's not just excuses, there's reasons behind it, and I can forgive them. The frustrating thing is, when you look at this season in its entirety, it's been a disaster. It has. And the FA Cup aside, in terms of the Premier League, it has been shocking.
Yeah.
Absolutely shocking. Now, losing at home to Arsenal, I've seen Sir Alex Ferguson teams lose at home to Arsenal, especially not injury-ravaged ones. There's no shame in that. Arsenal are fighting for the title for a reason. They're a very good team. And United are fighting around 8th for a reason. We're not. And we had all these injuries and whatnot. But when you look at when you add that defeat today onto the defeat against Bournemouth, the defeat against Fulham, the defeat against Brighton, the defeat against Crystal Palace, that's when it's like, hang on a minute, it's not good enough. The draw against Burnley, it's non-stop in it, where you just think almost every week at Old Trafford now we're poor. We are, especially in the Premier League, and the fact we've got a goal difference of -4, which hasn't happened since we were relegated.
Yeah.
And by the way, when we were relegated, it was -3. So we're worse goal difference wise than we were in 1974.
We've conceded more goals that season as well.
When we got relegated, that shows you the sort of the level of change and rebuild or whatever, reset, whatever you want to call it, that is needed at Old Trafford. And it's not just going to be 1 or 2 players come back from injury and all is sorted, although that will help. Because not only are you missing the likes of Martinez and Shaw and players you've been missing all season, Mason Mount, you're missing one player who's never out in Bruno, and I think he would have made a difference today. I think he might have actually ended up getting Odegaard at one point and saying, stop shooting all the time and get your head in the game. And also Marcus Rashford. I know people hammer Rashford, but he's got a good record against Arsenal, and he is a threat. And he would have been a good threat either starting or off the bench. He would have offered you something. It's certainly experience. So you're missing players that you don't normally be missing, and also you've got to contend with all these defensive injuries. Someone like Harry Maguire would have made a difference today. He would have. You know, Casemiro's not a centre-back. We're just watching the Trossard goal again, and Casemiro just isn't good enough in that. Stephen Harris says, I sneaked downstairs last night just to have a sniff of Joseph's chair up the paddock. Do you two live together, or was he here? Joseph...
Where are you?
Joshua Bowater says, what position gets Conference League? I'd genuinely rather finish lower than have to play in that competition.
Well, based on the detail of that Premier League website, it's sort of up for grabs depending on who wins this, that and the other. At the minute, it's 6th. But I think it's 6th, basically, for now.
Yeah, Thrime says, we need a new striker in centre-backs too. I don't trust that Butcher crap. So strong, injured for so long. We need many new players. I mean, Casemiro isn't a centre-back, but he does know how to play football. He's been in the game long enough, says Michael W. I agree. I think that that was so basic today that what happened. CU says Casemiro needs to go to Saudi League. It's in his best interest for both. Someone saying Garn is shy. I wouldn't say he's shy, but I thought he played very badly today. Witterbird Vicky says sometimes you have to go down to come up. It's been that since the dawn of time. Well, they say it's it's always darkest before the dawn. Casmofo says United played okay with limited resources, but we're all emotionally damaged. Numb. Give us the new season already. Yeah, it's not even that, just the physicality of it, is it? It's got to be, if you're a United player, you're stepping out onto the pitch against, and you should always give your all, I'm not saying you shouldn't, but it must be sort of emotionally challenging and just mentally draining. Poor results week in, week out. You're a United team that's breaking records for all the wrong reasons. You're not challenging for anything in the league at all that you'd want to be challenging for. You're not even going for Champions League spots. You just, can we maybe get Europa Conference, which is hardly the biggest motivation. It's got to be difficult, hasn't it? It really has.
Yeah.
Just to sort of the mental burden. And also, a lot of these players, you're looking around, you've got Kobe Mainoo who's a kid, Garnacho's a kid, Kambala comes on, he's a youngster as well. Diallo's still pretty young, hasn't played a lot of football. It's not like you've got loads and loads of experience there. You've got some, but not loads. Joe Go says, you could also blame Aaron Wan-Bissaka for losing concentration. Yeah, Wan-Bissaka, he's one who should be better. He should know better. He should be performing better. He's had enough experience and he's a good enough player to be playing a lot better than he has been. He's also back in his natural position. And I feel like he's gone off the boil completely over the last month.
Quite poor recently. And I think he's had enough ups and downs at United that, I don't know. I don't think he's a top right back, is he? He's a decent player and he's got some very good traits, but no other top 6 team would take him. They wouldn't. And that's not the only metric that you judge players by. But I don't think we necessarily need a fullback like him anymore. I think he's the sort of player that if a decent offer came in, I think he could go, because you might get 15, 20 million for him at a push, maybe.
He's a bit of a throwback as well, isn't he?
Yeah.
Wan-Bissaka and his style and everything. He's more like most fullbacks now are wingers.
Yeah.
And he's not really. I know he used to be, but he's a bit more of a
But the thing that undermines
defender.
him a little bit is we think of him as this defensive fullback, but then he does stuff like that.
Switches off.
And he switches off at the back post. He did it, I don't know, it's years ago now, but under Solskjaer, there was that season where...
do you remember the Cavani goal against Fulham where Cavani chipped it?
Yeah.
At Old Trafford where it was limited attendance.
Yeah, first game back, wasn't it?
And do you remember their equaliser?
No.
And I do.
Yeah.
And it was Aaron Wan-Bissaka going to sleep on the far post. And the thing with that is that was 3 years ago, whatever, or 3.5 years ago. And we're still having these same conversations, and it's happened a lot, in the meantime. And there are times when he switches off, and there's times when he gives away penalties later on in the game, or he does things where you're a little bit like, if you were just a little bit more savvy and a little bit more switched on, that wouldn't be happening.
Yeah.
And while I can make excuses for Mainu, I thought he did okay today, or Garnacho, or a Cambuala or whoever being not at it, or even Casemiro. I know he should be better, but you can at least say, well, he's not a centre back. Aaron Wan-Bissaka is a right back. That's his position. He should know that. He should be able to perform there, and he should be able to do his job there, and he isn't.
And I think the crucial sort of final piece with Wan-Bissaka for me is that he's not good enough at anything for it to be worth the stuff he's not good at. Yeah. Like, he's very good at slide tackling, one-on-one defending, but that's like, weirdly, unfortunately for him, sort of third or fourth in the list of what you want your right back to be these days. You want someone who maybe is defensively sound, of course, but you need someone overlapping, getting balls in the box, 1-2s up the pitch, dribbling past their man, and he's just not good enough at that sort of stuff. And he's of an age, and we've seen enough from him that I think maybe you keep him for next season if we've got 5 other positions we need to fix. But I do think having a different backup to Dalot would make a bit of sense to me, because he's nothing like Dalot. That's the other thing. We have these players where if Dallow's injured, you've got a completely different right back playing. Yeah. Whereas top teams, if Dalot gets injured, you have maybe a slightly worse version of Dalot. Yeah. Like even Malacia, he's more similar to Luke Shaw than Wan-Bissaka is to Dalot, and Malacia's been injured all season.
Do you have any? We'll wrap up soon, but do you have any concerns attack wise that some of these players aren't up to it, or do you feel confident?
Absolutely, I do.
Because I feel like the jury's still out a little bit.
Yeah, massively.
You know what I mean? I feel like, and I'm the most guilty one ever of going early on players and going, oh, he's, I've been doing that since Terry Cook and played with bloody Simon Davies. But I do, part of me does think like, in 2 or 3 years, how are we going to be turning around and going, actually, they weren't quite the player we thought.
This is the problem with where we are at United. Garnacho looks to be a very, very promising young player. Yeah. He's got 7 league goals, I think, this season. Yeah. He contributes. He's capable of the spectacular, which is always a very good thing to have in your pocket, like he did against Everton. Yeah. But he is a potential player. Yeah. Højlund is a potential player. Yeah. Rashford is different. He's not in that same category. He needs to prove himself, but he's much older, and we kind of know what we get out of Rashford. Mainu is a potential player. He looks very good, and I like what he does, but he's potential. If all 3 of those don't work, what have we got as the replacements? Yeah. Like Sancho is gone. Yeah, Greenwood is gone. Yeah. Martial is gone. Yeah. Anthony is not good enough. No. That's it. Yeah. That is the front line. Yeah. There's no one, like Pellistri is either gone or not good enough, but we've never seen enough from him to think he could come in and do better than Garnacho.
Past the point of no return. Like, I like Facundo Pellistri, but I feel like I'd be very surprised if he came back to Old Trafford and got
once
a chance.
Sancho, Greenwood and Martial goes, the only attackers we've got are Rashford, Garnacho and Højlund. Am I missing anyone? And Ahmad.
And it's, Rashford, I feel like Rashford's in this point now where it's like he was under Ralph Ragnick, where we go, is he going to stick around? Is he good enough? Is he going to, what's going to happen with him? There's a massive question mark over Marcus Rashford. There's a bit of a question mark over Garnacho. Is he going to be quite the levels we think he could be? Højlund had that massive purple patch, did really well in the Champions League. There's a question mark. Do you stick with him? Do you bring a striker to play alongside him, go 2 strikers, which is pretty unheard of in the modern era? Or do you bring someone in to challenge him? So I'm not, after this game, throwing these players under the bus, but I'm just saying, we might have questions to answer in a defence, in midfield, and in attack. Yeah. That's the worrying thing for me. I don't think you can say everything is rosy in one area. I think potential, some of these youngsters could be world class. I think Kobbie Mainoo, from what I've seen, looks the absolute bee's knees, and I love the kid. My worry is we're running him into the ground. You're going to come in next season, you're going to go, okay, if some of these players don't kick on, if they're not given the help they need, and we're not seeing the numbers from in terms of the attackers that we need to, do we have to get more experience in? Do we have to start rotating it? I do feel like it's been very difficult from this season because they've been overplayed, all of them, including Rasmus Højlund. Should never have played as many games as he has, but it does worry me a little bit. One final word from you. Yeah. I think we've got Newcastle and we've got Brighton now. How worried are you that we're going into this FA Cup final? We're in free fall. Do you think we can turn it around in those 2 games?
I think we should be able to get at least 2 points from those 2 games. I think win one, find a way to win one. Just whatever you have to do. Play counter-attacking against Newcastle, play counter-attack, do whatever you have to do and just get 3 points somehow or draw them. But you know what I mean? Like, losing both of those games would be really bad. You've got to have some level of momentum going into that City game. I know I said that it's not all about momentum because those cup finals are different. But there's a difference between, we've won 2 of our last 6 and we've won 1 of our last 13.
Yeah.
Like, one is we haven't got much momentum, and one is we are in the absolute basement in terms of confidence. There's a big difference there. I just think find a way to look as though you're a danger to teams. We need to get a couple of goals. We barely score at the moment. It's unfortunate, the injuries, and we said it before the game. That squad that I saw today, and this is no diss at anyone in particular, is one of the weaker squads I have seen from us in the Premier League.
I think it's the weakest.
Like, you have to factor in that from 1993 to 2013, none of them were like that. Yeah. We had a few here and there where we had a lot of injuries, but you would have people who've won 4 or 5 Premier League titles on the bench. This was all kids, Anthony and Ericsson on the bench. Then it was mostly kids, Casemiro out of position, 35-year-old Johnny Evans, Dalot out of position, McTominay and Amrabat, who barely gets a game these days, and Ahmad, who's making his first start in 18 months or something ridiculous. Like, these are inexperienced and underperforming players, and there was no other alternatives. We need some players back before that City game, but just find a way to get a couple of points, lads, because, like I said, I'm not all about momentum before a cup final, especially one that's a derby, because it's just a different day. But 1 win in 13 going into that would be really, really difficult to overcome.
No, I agree completely. Make sure you are hitting like, share and subscribe. Go and check Joe out on the Sloppy Joe's podcast. You know where to find me as well. I'm going to be back in the morning with the news from outside Old Trafford. Also, we'll get some more post-reaction from the likes of Stephen House and all those lot as well. So make sure you're sticking around for that. I've been Jay Motty. That's been Joe Smith, not Joe Swift.
No.
This has been a review. Manchester United losing another game, this time at home to Arsenal. Thanks for watching.